Hey there everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Kastology, the show hosted by yours truly, where I look into obscure things and other things I like, either to try and give a new perspective or to bring more awareness to it. As someone who lives and grew up in France, I've seen my share of weird and obscure shows that most people outside of Europe haven't heard of, or don't talk about very often. Most of the time, these shows are actually French and made in France, and so they end up not getting much recognition outside of the country. And this is actually the case of the show I'm going to talk about today. But I would like to specify that I'm not going to review the show. I just want to analyze it overall and explain what the show represents, at least in my opinion. But without further ado, let's get into it. First off, what is Get Blake? Well, it's a cartoon from 2015 about a kid named Blake Myers, who, in the future, will become a space ranger destined to defeat the evil Squalians. A trio of Squalians have been sent into the past to capture Blake and stop him from becoming the space ranger. Blake, with his best friend Mitch, have to use their wits and skills to get away from them. I think that's an interesting premise. But this is a very short and condensed version of the story. There's one season with 26 episodes composed of 52 segments. As far as I know, the show is episodic, so there's no real plot, besides in the final episode of season 1 where Blake finally got captured. But we'll talk more about that later on. This show has a lot of tropes. It has the quirky episode names. All episode names start off with get and then a noun, a verb or an adjective. There's the fat best friend trope, there's the cowboy episode, and I could go on. The show also likes to be self-aware sometimes, and kinda gives off that Phineas and Ferb vibe. But like, less good? I don't know how I would describe it. It's trying to be Phineas and Ferb, but it's just not quite there. It is rather odd, considering some of the staff had literally come from that show, which had just ended in the same year the show was supposed to debut. The show's animation is really inconsistent. I'm almost certain it's done in Flash or Toon Boom or something. Sometimes it's really smooth, like in episode 1, and sometimes it's really jank. I think it's actually getting worse the more the show goes on, but I can't really say as I don't have access to the episodes. I think the best comparison is Johnny Test. That show had really solid hand-drawn animation in season 1, but as season 2 came it went to Flash, and while the animation was still decent, it was not anywhere near the level of season 1. And then it progressively got worse. Then they added the whip cracks. It's like Johnny Test in the sense that it's like season 2. Sometimes it's smooth, sometimes it's jank. And it's thanks to this terrible segue that I will now be talking about the staff of the show, as it will be more important later on. There are quite a few big names on here, like Chris Savino, mostly known for The Loud House, Kaz, who was on SpongeBob, Antoine Guiveau, who was a storyboarder for Phineas and Ferb, Reed Harrison, who was a writer for The Simpsons, and Vincent Chalvon de Marseille. That name might sound familiar, and that's because the show was produced by the one, the only, Marathon Media, the big French-Canadian animation studio responsible for Totally Spies, and those other shows no one talks about. Now, you'll tell me, well Kast, this show doesn't sound so bad. It seems like it's got a lot of things going for it. What do you mean it's symbolic of Nickelodeon's abuse? Well, my friend, and I'm gonna get into that right now, starting with the broadcast of the show in the US. I think we can all agree that the US would obviously be the biggest market for the show, but it got fucking mistreated. It was going to premiere on Nickelodeon in April of 2015, but then it got moved to the Nicktoons network. And began airing in April of 2016 instead. I'll explain it for those who don't know. Nicktoons Network is a sister channel to Nickelodeon that was launched in 2002, and it's usually there for reruns of Nickelodeon shows. It's not a channel many people have access to since most cable providers don't have Nicktoons. So basically, due to people not being able to access it easily, it's the graveyard. This is where shows which aren't very popular go to die. It's when they don't want to outright cancel a show, but feel like letting decreasing viewership take it out of its misery. But yeah, this is not the first time they've done this, and this is not the last time they will do this. I can list a number of examples, such as As Told by Ginger, My Life as a Teenage Robot, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Making Fiends, which was actually the most successful original show on Nicktoons Network. I think this would actually make for an interesting video, but I know of 2 content creators who have already done it better than I have, or better than I could ever do it. Rebeltaxi and Media Mementos have good videos on these, and I think I will link them in the description. Well, back on topic. After knowing this, well, the last episode of Season 1, it's a 2-parter. That doesn't sound so bad, until you realize that it's actually a cliffhanger. Yes, a cliffhanger ending, for an obscure show, mistreated by the network. When this episode originally aired, I genuinely thought the show was gonna end on this bad note. Blake got captured, the end. The show got into a Teen Titans situation, where you'll never really know what will happen because the show won't get renewed. And this is why I pulled a fast one on you, because there's actually a second season! Yes! A second season! What a miracle! And keep in mind, they only ordered one season with 52 episodes. The fact that this show even got a second season is absolutely impressive to me, and I'd be even more surprised if it had an English dub. There's so little information on this season that I actually have a lot of trouble discerning if it's real or not. I actually haven't seen any of the episodes for myself. I've only heard about it through TV guides, which makes it really hard to know if it's real or not. But I guess we'll see in the long run if they ever end up showing it outside of the French Nickelodeon channel. It was pretty much mistreated by the network in the country that could have arguably been its biggest audience, and it wasn't very well advertised. I'm actually surprised they got the full run of Season 1 on there, unless I'm wrong, considering Making Fiends got fucked over even harder. After all this, suppose the 2 things that saved it were the names behind it, along with the French audience. Now, I'll try to finish this as best as I can, since I'm terrible with conclusions. As a kid, I liked the show, and I'd watch it whenever it came on, but it wasn't like my favorite show of all time. As I said earlier, the show was self-aware, rather funny sometimes. My only gripes are that Blake is a little generic for a main character, and the animation is really inconsistent. It's so stilted that it's kind of a turn-off, sometimes. Would I recommend it? I guess I would, but I don't know if the English dub is any good, since I haven't watched it. But, if you want to watch the show, it's available on Apple TV and Prime Video. Get Blake is a show that could have gotten way bigger than it ended up being. Somewhat big ambition, animation that was trying, and decent comedy. Sadly, there's still only 5 people that know about it though. I like to think that this is the polar opposite of Johnny Test. That show wasn't trying to be huge or anything, but Cartoon Network loved it and it became hated by everyone. While Get Blake tried really hard just to end up being on a wrong network when it ended up becoming obscure.
Did you know that?
Robbie Daymond, the voice of Goro Akechi, voices Blake Myers.
Now you know!
Next time on Kastology.
It's all kids out of the pool for Adult Swim.
So thanks for watching guys. I'm trying something new with my channel and I hope you guys will like it. I'm basically trying to get some kind of consistency because I don't know if you've noticed, but my last few uploads are all over the place. So yeah, I hope this goes well and see you later.